Hello, welcome to you next officer. This is Sushil, and today we are back with another question of international relationship. So, if we look at today's question, it is more about security concept in international politics. It is useful for PSIR optional as well as actually this question might not be served in general studies paper 2, but you will find this video as one of the eye opener and which can give you good understanding about how security dilemma comes into picture when it comes to international politics. And again, I say it is international politics rather than international relationship. Okay. So the question today reads out as why security is contested concept in international politics and how does the feminist and social constructivist school describe security? Okay, so as we move forward, uh, as I reiterate in almost every video, something that should be in our mind is we need to do it in 10 minutes at max. Anything about 10 minutes is undoubtedly a wrong path to choose, and you're wasting your time for more time, and you're probably missing out another answers. So net you will get less marks in complete paper. So your answer has to fit in the cock in whole story, whereby you can fetch good amount of marks if possible 140 or 150 in a particular paper where you can get uh, aggregate of good marks in optional. Okay, so a quick thought process of what to be done in introduction body and end with a good conclusion is what we are practicing over the days, and this question would be no different. So first, let's underline what are things which we need to focus. Of course, security, that is all about uh, the whole answer. So, and specifically they asked, how does feminist and social constructivist schools describe security? Which means, though we introduce something about security, everything else, the whole body should focus more on two schools of thought and what they feel about security specifically. So, these two schools are to be focused. And as a conclusion, we need to give some good conclusion where your verbal skills and your literary skills would be displayed. Do that in the end. Before that, just approach with basic definition, basic understanding in your own words, if you can express about what feminists view about security and how social constructivists also look at the things. Okay, so let's move on to introduction immediately. So you would start with what security is. You can write like security. Okay. So what is your bare understanding of security? Is it just like military protects the territory, or is it like defending from neighbor countries if they are so aggressive? Uh, Actually, it is a narrow definition if you go by that word, but actually, if you look at the security, not just military, you have cyber security, water security, food security, all those things would come under it. So it's not just military defending uh, as an external security and internal security with some extremism. So it is much more about, it's much more than a normal one which is used in common parlance. So we need to ensure, uh, in case we are not able to produce enough food, we import it, and there is no hurdle for that. Even we can think about cyber security, food security, and water security. If there is a scarcity of water, even that can lead to disasters. You will find with scarcity, if there is a move by government in order to show hegemony over some other countries, especially when there is a situation where you are at a lower riparian state, the upper riparian state may block water access to you, and then people with dearth of water may take up a rebellion. So end of the day, the physical war has to be prevented, and for that, security is something which we take as measure to prevent the worst scenario, the war, from happening. So this is all about security in general understanding, but don't be with narrower view that having ammunition, having weapons so that you can protect your country um, from any aggression at borders or with the neighboring states. So let's move away from that narrower view, and we can start something like security is related to, closely related to power. So if power is a contested one, power is contested concept, then security will also be a contested concept. So you can, if you want, you can, and one potential trap where you should not be going with the flow is that when you uh, relate security concept closely with power, don't go on expanding what power is, everything else. Don't waste time because that is not asked in your question. So don't deviate from the scenario. Now, you can write in a way that you have sovereign states into existence in the modern world, which was not earlier. So this security concept has broadened its horizons with that. And then you know that in domestic realms, uh, center would control if there is any interstate disputes, everything else, and with the union government has a slight chance to ensure in convincing, or if not, they can even impose on states to ensure the disputes are resolved. But there is no such uh, sovereign authority to control in international order. So, though at a domestic level you have some stability, but there is stability in the sense, you have some obeying authority and someone who can guide and ensure disputes are not very common, or at least at lower intensity. An international order, you don't have anything else. You might get a thought that UN can control something, but UN is it's more or less a delegation body and can't say we would interfere and stop to ensure the stronger power, stronger country won't impose anything on smaller country. For suppose US is imposing sanctions on Iran. So if US is imposing sanctions on Iran, I don't think UN will interfere and say no, no, this is not right. Even WTO would not interfere. See, because in most of the forums, It is more about ensuring their own interest, and especially more than the interests of the people, interest of the leader who is serving there is something that is mattering. Now, so international order is characterized by anarchy. So with this anarchy, how people are looking at this anarchy is something that is important, and that will give rise to the concept of security. So you can, in introduction, you can start with security closely relating with the power, and though domestic order is stable, you have international order being anarchic, and that is why the security dilemma comes into picture. So we are speaking more about security dilemma. Actually, what is security dilemma? So security dilemma is something like, okay, today we have at Asia level, we have India with China at a north and eastern part, with Pakistan on the western part. So in case China gets stronger, China has other players in his own realms, because they have, sometimes they have animosity with the Korea, Japan, someone else. So China, in order to ensure the security, or even to maximize their geographical extent, as the desire or some appeasement politics happens at domestic level, naturally they would like to expand their power. So they may ensure some new nuclear submarines inducted, or some intercontinental ballistic missiles are developed with China. So the very immediate reaction by India would be that to counter China, we need to ensure we are equally strong enough. So India would build their own new intercontinental ballistic missile, maybe some Agni series or something else, or we would go for uh, recently you might have heard about S-400 missile. China has not attacked yet, but because it is growing stronger, in anticipation that it may make us subordinate to them, or it may attack in future, for that to be future ready, just with speculation, India would also develop its own ammunition. Now, when India is getting stronger, there is another force, Pakistan, who is again feeling the same what India felt with China. They would build their missiles, some missile like Baba or something. They would build their missiles. This, in the name of deterrence, we all live in a world where we are not having trust over our own neighbors that they won't attack, and we feel a scenario where there is a natural speculation, natural fear, and in that fear, we develop more weapons of mass destruction. So, this deterrence concept is translating into a dilemma where, in the name of security, we are actually posing more threat and more vulnerability, with each state getting stronger with the dangerous weapons. So the world order is getting more anarchic, because everyone want to be in a situation where we are not subordinate to any other country. We are not in a situation where someone is more stronger, either with security concerns, trade, whatever it is. So that dilemma of security is what is more related to this power security duality. So this is what forms core of your first part of your question. Uh, so if you are able to explain the security dilemma and how anarchy exists and how is it related to power, this part is done. So this part is done. Now we have two schools to be explained, and if you are saving time and space, you have good amount of time to spend on these schools. So you have two schools. How they look at this concept is what we are thinking about. First school is Feminist School. You can either write in paragraphs, or you can even compare two schools. Actually, there is no uh, concrete contrast so that you can compare them, but as per your convenience, you can write either this way or as paragraphs. So, social constructivists and feminists. So, here you need to mention scholars or thinkers of a particular school, definitely. So, how do feminists describe this security? These feminists would more advocate for a broad definition where all forms of violence would come under security. They would like to, I think, if you have ever touched this feminism school of thought, they would say personal is political. So they would delve into the personal lives and would like to say personal is international as well. So they would say uh, domestic violence is also to be included. Not just domestic violence, any kind of violence has to be included as part of feminism. Suppose, uh, okay, we are on 20th of November. Uh, Slightly controversy, but just let's look at a third party observation. You might have heard about that Veerdas. I don't know whether it is stand-up comedy or a particular show where he was talking about two Indias, where he was speaking about rapes happening on women, gender subordination, and something else of economic deprivation of women as well. So, what others nationalist school of thought process would say, this is our internal matter, and uh, this is in the private sphere. So, we would settle at our own country level. Please don't interfere, and you have no right to interfere. But this feminist school of thought would say it is security. Security is like, as we were speaking about security power dilemma, it is more about how a stronger man would impose his will over the weaker. It is more about survival of the fittest. That thought process is more masculine system, and feminism would oppose that masculine system of securitization, militarization, and violence without recognition. And there is a concept of violence with the recognition. Here it is, because violence, in many movies, even you have heard that if a police does something, it is recognized. She should have some, uh, he should have some order to act upon with violence from higher authorities or courts. But in war, everything is fine and you can kill them from any angle according to your wish once war breaks. So you can't say, unless court gives me order, I won't shoot the enemy, I won't attack and kill the enemy. So that violence with or without recognition is the concept which feminist school advocate with. So this violence with recognition is done. Then comes uh, yeah. So as again feminism's emergence has come against patriarchy. So they would look at as a different sense, linking patriarchy with international order. So uh, here, if we to explain this, you can use a particular scholar of feminist view. Uh, I would like to use Cynthia. You can use any other if you know someone who fits here. I would use her. So this will add value. What Cynthia says is most of the security personnel, most of them are male, and so the masculine thought process dominates. So she critiqued the hegemonic lens of patriarchy. So Cynthia says hegemonic lens of patriarchy is what the problem all about with this international anarchy. So you could mention Cynthia, and here is the feminism. Feminist school of thought is completed. Now, parallelly, what social constructivists have told is uh, something we need to progress with. So, security here, parallelly, the way Cynthia is famous for feminist school of thought and international relationships and international politics, you have at social constructivist, you have Alexander Wendt. Because whenever you get a scholar here, your thought process would be streamlined if you are able to think scholar of other school as well. Alexander Wendt, spelling is Wendt. So what does Alexander Wendt say? He says anarchy is what states makes according to its prominence. So he speaks about anarchy is what states makes about it. Anarchy is something where there is no imposition of law. So sometimes anarchy, if utilized better, would benefit the state because there is no imposition of any trade regulations or something. So here comes something relevant with the US-Iran relations. If US has not imposed any trade regulations with those sanctions of Qatar, then it was beneficial to Iran. That is because anarchy, US could not regulate Iran, or WTO can't regulate Iran. So without this Katsa, Iran is benefited. So when we say without a particular rule, sometimes it is a good thing if you utilize it. So the famous quote, security is unstable because of anarchy, and anarchy is what states makes out of it. Quote in the same words, anarchy is what state makes out of it. And this notion is not only affected by politics but also ideas to argue change in nature of social interaction between states, which can bring fundamental shift. So social constructivists would call about how your society is being constructed internally, and that also might determine your external order. As we were speaking about the realism yesterday, in other answer of India Bangladesh relationship, you can understand uh, how internal politics are related with external one. That is also advocated by social constructivists. Okay, so we have good number of points to fill our body with unique and worthy concepts. So probably we have done that. If you want to add equal number of points, if you feel feminist school of thought has been filled with larger content in social constructivist, you can emphasize on people to people ties. This is what we discussed about India Bangladesh relationship. If you have visited and seen that video, if not, please do visit. We would like to give link in description for sure. So people to people ties is something social constructivist would advocate for. So with all these things done, we need to conclude sooner, and that conclusion should be with a bang to end. Because at times evaluator might look at the conclusion first, and if he's impressed with that word, that impression might carry out. Of course, that sets an expectation. Unless you meet that expectation, the same momentum would not be carried out. So with conclusion, I would show the conclusion, of I would show my answer and how it has been written, and let's discuss conclusion as well. So as I said, it is more explaining about the concept of power, how it is related to security. Then we went on to calling how anarchy exists at international level, and it is unstable, unlike the domestic regime where you have some sovereign states with order and stability with it. And then we moved out to explain the security dilemma. This security dilemma, if explained properly, definitely that provoking and military moves, if explained properly, would fetch you good marks for sure. This is where your initial impressions can give and set a particular expectation as well. Then came the feminist view. So, feminist view on security is what we discussed in that table form. So, you can, if you can explain that way with what Cynthia spoke about and what masculinity about, and how domestic violence, poverty, gender subordination, everything matters when you speak about security. And with social constructivists, you there is nothing like you need to follow the same order. If scholar comes first in your mind, before it goes out of your mind, please put it on the paper to ensure you don't miss it with the flow, because you have only 10 minutes to write this answer. So if you can produce this word as it is, with no paraphrasing. I think this is something which will help you. Anarchy is what state makes out of it. This part, if you're able to mention with Alexander Wern's word, then that will again add. So here how they speak about people to people ties. If you don't miss these particular points, and which would form as keywords whenever you write a particular optional answer. So this interaction will help you fetch slightly an edge over the uh, kind of kind of uh, impression you leave upon the evaluator would ensure you get half a mark at every level, and you end up getting maybe 2 marks extra by end. So as we spoke, our target is 9 out of 15 as a target, and within time limit. So for that, if you want to put that cherry on the cake, come with best possible conclusion. Here, if you look at two different schools, they didn't speak about compare, they didn't speak about anything else. So we can say as security is contested, though it is contested, all kind of views on security converge at a dilemma of interpretation. How you interpret the definition of security is where you converge, but diverge. You diverge at a dilemma of response. How, after interpreting, how you respond and act upon is where every school of thought would differ. So, on this note, uh, I think we added some value to your answer writing, and we helped you develop this uh, skill. Hopefully, you would revisit this space for more videos. For that, please do subscribe, and you can look at other videos which are left at description as well. Thank you, and see you tomorrow with another answer.